Hola a todos y bienvenidos. Welcome back to Real Fast Spanish. Today you're going to learn all about another essential everyday Spanish verb, salir. Now specifically you're going to learn 3 ways this verb can appear in a Spanish sentence and 7 common uses. Hola, soy Andrés, I'm Andrew, y estudio español desde hace más de 20 años and I've been studying Spanish for over 20 years. I've also been running a Spanish school for the last 10 years called Real Fast Spanish, which has helped over 3,000 students work towards their goals of conversational Spanish. Now, this video is part of a series I've been doing on everyday Spanish verbs, and the focus of this series is the 3 main verb structures that you'll regularly encounter in Spanish. And that's normal verbs, verbs like gustar, and reflexive verbs. Now, many verbs in Spanish, including salir, will appear in all 3 of these structures, and there will generally be a change in meaning for each. This means for salir, you might come across salgo, me sale, or me salgo. Now, as I've mentioned before, I'm not going to cover every possible use of the verb, especially the obscure ones that you're unlikely to hear in day-to-day conversation. At Real Fast Spanish, the focus is on the most common and useful forms for everyday conversational Spanish. So with that said, let's start with the normal form, salgo. And the first use of salir in this normal form means to go out or to leave. So for example, I'm leaving the house at 7. Salgo de la casa a las 7. Now note, when we leave from a place, I'm leaving the house, I'm leaving the office, we need to say salgo de. Try to remember that we need the de here. Now this can be tricky because we don't often say I'm leaving from in English, but an example that translates really well would be I have to get out of here. Tengo que salir de aquí. So you can see that salir de works well with get out of in English. Now salir can also mean to go out, as in to go out to celebrate. So we're going out tonight. Salimos esta noche. Another example, I'm not going out, I have to study. No voy a salir, tengo que estudiar. Now, very closely related is salir con, which means to go out with someone. Now, this could be going out with friends, or it could be going out with someone romantically. For example, I go out with my friends every Friday. Salgo con mis amigos todos los viernes. Are you dating someone? ¿Estás saliendo con alguien? You could respond, yes, I've been going out with Sara for 3 months. Sí, salgo con Sara desde hace 3 meses. So just like English, I'm going out with the boys, salgo con los chicos, or I'm going out with Sara, salgo con Sara, context will tell you if it's romantic or not. Now, the next use of salir means to turn out a certain way or to come out as a result. So, for example, everything turned out okay. Todo salió bien. My photos always turn out blurry. Mis fotos siempre salen borrosas. The presentation went very well. La presentación salió muy bien. Now let's look at salir as a verb like gustar, and you'll see it in the form me sale. Now in this structure, salir means to come naturally to, like to come naturally to me or to come out of me. For example, singing doesn't come naturally to me, or maybe even colloquially in English, singing is not my thing. Cantar no me sale. Spanish is really coming to me now, or I can speak Spanish now. Ya me sale hablar español. When I'm tired, the words don't come to me. Cuando estoy cansado, no me salen las palabras. Now, I've definitely expressed this over the years. When you are tired, it just becomes so much harder to speak Spanish. Now, we can think of this phrase literally as the words don't leave to me, but we can think of this as the words aren't coming out or they're just not coming to me. Next, let's look at the reflexive form salirse, which looks like me salgo in the first person. Now, often with reflexive verbs in Spanish, we can get a meaning that is close to the non-reflexive form, but with a subtle change. And so the first example with salirse, to leave, would be to leave in an unexpected way or in an unconventional way. For example, he escaped unexpectedly through the window or out of the window. Se salió por la ventana. Now note, in contrast, we can say salió por la ventana. Now, for this second case, the normal form, it's just a fact. It's very matter of fact, right? He left through the window. We're just stating it. Whereas se salió is more expressive. He escaped through maybe a tiny window, or he did it so quickly that I didn't expect he could do it that fast. Another example, she unexpectedly left the meeting without saying anything. Se salió de la reunión sin decir nada. So again, imagine a scenario where everyone is talking in a meeting and a person just gets up and leaves right in the middle of the meeting without saying anything. This would be a good situation where we would say se sale or se salió because it was unexpected. Next, we have salirse, which means to overflow or to spill over. So imagine you were boiling milk on the stove. You could say, milk overflowed from the pot. La leche se salió de la olla. Another example, after the storm, the river overflowed or the river burst its banks. Después de la tormenta, el río se salió. Now, we can also use salirse to mean to deviate from a plan, kind of like to go off script, as a colloquial phrase in English. We went off the path and got lost. Nos salimos del camino y nos perdimos. Now, we can also deviate from a plan in the sense that someone says something that was unexpected or rude. His comment was out of line. Su comentario se salió del lugar. Next, we have a really common expression in Spanish, which is salirse con la suya, to get one's way. Now, we would use this when someone gets what they want. So, for example, he always gets his own way. Siempre se sale con la suya. Another example, are we going to let him get away with it or are we going to let him get his way? Vamos a dejar que se salga con la suya. Now, note that we need the subjunctive here, dejar que se salga. Now, I've said in previous videos that I avoid examples with the subjunctive, but this one is really common. Like to let someone get away with something, you will hear this for sure. So I wanted to include it in the video. Also note the use of dejar, to allow. I've covered dejar in a previous video in the series. Next, we have salirse, which means to slip out unintentionally. And we're going to use this to talk about reactions that people let out without meaning to. And you can sort of see a pattern that's happening with the reflexive form of salir, unintended, unexpected, unintentional. For example, I'm sorry I couldn't help but laugh. Lo siento, se me salió la risa. Literally, a laugh left itself to me, meaning that the laugh just came out unintentionally. Another example, the truth slipped out, or I accidentally told him the truth. Se me salió decirle la verdad. Literally, telling him the truth left to me, but again, just means it came out unintentionally. So that wraps up this video on salir. Creo que ya te salen mejor los usos de salir. If you'd like to watch the other videos in this series on everyday Spanish verbs, I'll put the playlist up here.